Feeling drained, foggy, or just not yourself? These may be the effects of low testosterone levels. Henry Meds has you covered. Our testosterone replacement therapy, or TRT, is available in easy-to-take oral pills, injectable options, or daily creams. Many patients report improvements in energy, mood, and focus. Though individual results may vary, TRT may also support sexual function for some patients. Go to henrymeds.com to consult a healthcare provider to see if TRT is right for you. Take the first step to helping you feel your best again.
Dinner, the bane of every parent's existence. No one warns you about it, and if dinner wasn't hard enough, next you gotta find something to watch, other than that one episode of Friends you have on repeat. That's where Plex comes in. It's a free app that shows you what's on everywhere. Netflix, Hulu, Max, we mean everywhere. Plus, you also get thousands of free movies, shows, and live TV channels. Can't help with dinner, though. That's still on you. Download the Plex app for your phone and TV today.
Throws, it is caught! Touchdown!
Drops back to throw, it's picked off! Touchdown!
Shotgun snap, under pressure, ball is straight!
This is the Mean Gene Show
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's Mean Gene.
Everybody, welcome to Week 14 of the NFL. My name is Jacob Meadows. I am not Mean Gene. I am here for the coach's quarters. Today, Mean Gene could not be here. Thoughts and prayers out to him and his family. However, I do have a special guest with me today in studio. This is one of my best friends, somebody who knows very little about sports, so I thought he would give an interesting perspective on the games that are going on. This is also the bachelor that kept me out of the office a couple weeks ago. Please give a very warm welcome for Mr. Bryce, the Italian Stallion Shepherd. What is up, baby?
Oh, what's going on? What's going on? Happy to be here, man. Happy to be here.
This is going to be a fun show, guys. We've got AJ, the man with the plan behind the glass wall, and we've got Bryce here in studio. This should be good. Hopefully you're listening, Mean Gene. I hope you're having a much better day than you could be, brother. So we are going to jump right into Week 14. So we had 6 teams on bye week this week. And the games that were going on today for this Sunday and for Thursday. Thursday was a much better game than what we had going on this Sunday. But there were some good matchups with lots of playoff implications. And we're going to jump straight into the Packers versus Lions matchup. I do believe we have a soundbite waiting for us to kick this off. Mr. AJ.
They're going. They are going. And then Goff falls down, but Montgomery is able to pick up the first down.
Long enough on his feet. Let's watch his feet. Yeah, he gets stepped on by Glasgow, the left guard. And somehow he reaches out. Once he got it to Montgomery. What a call, by the way. Are you kidding me? 4 of 5 now. College ball, he's down. This is the pro game. He's good to go.
So that was Jared Goff winning the game against the Packers for the most part. Yeah. And Bryce, I know you're a Packers fan. I know you're marrying into a Packers family, which is incredible. But how do you feel? Because it looked like the Packers, they played a great game. The Lions somehow eked it away. How do you feel about the trajectory for the Packers to end this season?
Yeah, I think so far they're playing about how I thought they'd play. Going into the year where we're at right now. Losing 2 to the Lions does hurt, right? I think the one at home hurt a little bit more than the one last week. I think getting the run game established early is big for the Packers, and I think LaFleur waited just a little bit too long, right? When Josh Jacobs is going, the Packers are going, it takes pressure off of Jordan Love. Yeah. And when he has no pressure on him, I think Jordan Love is one of, if not the best quarterback in the NFL. That's a bold statement, I know. But that's how I feel. That's how I feel.
He's good. He's really good. He's played well beyond my expectations this season. I wouldn't call him the best in the NFL. But, I mean, he has had a great season. He does look good. And when Josh Jacobs is rolling, the Packers are rolling. But like you said, you think that LaFleur waited a little too long to get the run game engaged. Josh Jacobs did have a pretty decent day, all things considered. I mean, he had 18 carries for 66, scored 3 tutters, though. So that was, I mean, he was the catalyst for their offense. Maybe is there something they could do to boost their run game, in your opinion? Just because, I mean, he is their only guy, like he is their primary back, but A.J. Dillon's not that guy. So, like, how would they get it going quicker? Because they can only run him so many times before he gets worn out. Yeah. And the Detroit Lions are a good team. This is number 1 in the NFC. They have a great defense, even minus Aiden Hutchinson, who might be coming back, by the way. But what could they have done better?
The Lions are tough. First off, we need to just go ahead and say the Lions are a very, very good football team, right? But I think when you go back to Thanksgiving night with the Packers against the 49ers, you're putting Jordan Love in 2nd and 3, 2nd and 2. Then you can take a little shot. If you don't get it, you go back to Josh Jacobs, get 3 or 4, it's first down. Kind of similar to what the Lions do week in and week out with the two-headed monster that they have in the backfield. That's absolutely phenomenal. Best running back duo
Sonic
in the NFL.
and Knuckles. Yeah, it's dope.
Yeah, without a doubt. But you can't look too much into this game against the Lions. The Lions are the cream of the crop, I think, right now in the NFC. And I personally would really like to watch them go at it for a third time in the playoffs. I think it's good TV. It's good football. I think 2 of the best teams in the NFC. But the Eagles are right there, too. So
agree with that. But just as a side note, I skipped over this early on. You can listen to us at youtube.com/@ESPN Houston. Or we are streaming on Twitch as well. This is Houston 97.5. But back to what we were talking about. Yeah, I mean, it's the Lions are the cream of the crop. Dan Campbell's got balls the size of Saturn. Yeah. Right? Like all he does is go for it when nobody else would, which is kind of that has become the Detroit Lions, which is super cool in my opinion. Not something that they've never had before.
Yeah, and you're watching the game, and it's the 4th down and 1 at the end, and Herbie, everyone in the booth is saying, kick the field goal here. Jordan Love has 40 seconds, no timeout. I think what Dan Campbell did, I think that's what every coach should do. I think watching football and playing football like that, trusting your team to say, hey, if we can't get 1 yard, we don't deserve to win the game tonight.
I'm right there with you. I mean, I know what analytics say, right? Like the analytics always say, you punt, your defense gives you the best opportunity to keep playing, right? To stay competitive, to be in the game. But on inches 1, maybe 2 yards out, I mean, it blows my mind that there aren't more coaches like Dan Campbell who are willing to go for it and give their offense the opportunity to score more points, which, mind you, that's actually how you win games.
Yeah. And, I mean, he did it early in the game, too, on his side of the field, which resulted in the Packers scoring a touchdown, though. It kind of put the Packers back in the game. But it's staying consistent with your players, and I think that's the most exciting thing about the Lions is they're pretty bought into Dan Campbell's mentality, and when you watch them play, that's what it is. They're banged up in the secondary right now, and Jordan Love only threw for 206.
Which is good.
In a dome, right? And 1 touchdown. And against a secondary that's banged up, and when they get healthy, Packers were banged up too in the second half.
Yes.
We lost some guys in the secondary. But yeah, I think the Lions are just fun to watch. Hard to say that being a Packers fan. If the fiance is listening at home, so sorry. But the Lions are fun to watch.
They are. And I'll doubling in on what you said, like everybody on that team goes to war for Dan Campbell. Yeah. Every week they go to war for Dan Campbell, and I think that might be the reason why the Lions are finally able to make a push deep into the playoffs. And I mean, I want them to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. I know as a Packers fan, you have to disagree with that, but I mean, it's the Lions. Like they've
been through enough. They've been through enough.
It's been years of misery. They're basically the Cleveland Browns of the NFC, historically speaking. They just had Barry Sanders, who was great, Megatron, who was great, Matt Stafford, who was great, and it amounted to absolutely nothing. Yeah. So, they're the Cleveland Browns of the NFC, and I want to see the Lions go the distance.
Yeah. And I think, and even talking about it, I think just how good Jared Goff has looked since the Texans game.
Yeah.
5
picks.
He was my fantasy quarterback when he threw 5 picks that week. That was tough to kind of, look at and watch the game and just know.
Sure.
That's what's happening to me. You win some, you lose some. But I mean, even against the Packers, he threw for 3 touchdowns, nearly 300 yards. I mean, Jared Goff. Who would have thought him and Dan Campbell are a perfect fit? But he almost reminds me of the Jared Goff that played in L.A. with McVay.
I have to agree, and honestly, so Jared Goff is the only quarterback outside of Lamar Jackson that I would peg as a possible MVP candidate. He is not who I think, nor who I want to win the award, but if a quarterback had to win it with his efficiency throughout this season, right? He's had so many games where he almost has a perfect passer rating. He almost never misses. The Texans was a complete outlier for his season, right? Like, he hasn't had 5 picks any other game this year, and normally he doesn't miss a pass until the end of the fourth quarter. I think his efficiency is something that should carry him to the MVP rankings, only because it's something that we don't see.
Yeah.
You have so many quarterbacks week in and week out that, they may play well, but they don't play perfect. And Jared Goff has been a perfect game manager, as well as somebody who can push the envelope all season so far.
Yeah, and I think it makes it easier to be a game manager, like we talked about when you have Gibbs and Montgomery in the backfield.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can also, slip it out to Jameson Williams, who could break one tackle and no one's catching him.
Just slips away. Yeah.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the top receivers in the league, gets open, gets separation. May have been a pass interference that was missed in that late in that game against the Packers, but we won't talk about that. But yeah, they're just a solid football team, and I think if you're a Green Bay Packers fan, you should feel good. You've lost to this team twice, and it's been a one-score game.
Yep, both times.
And I think, I don't know if Jordan Love said it, but I think it was after the game he said, I hope we get a third shot at those guys. Let's get into the playoffs and let's see what happens.
And that might be the most exciting game for the NFC in the playoffs, is if they do end up matching up. How about Tim Patrick bringing in 2 tutters? I mean, Tim Patrick, somebody he's missed the last couple of years with injury, came out of Denver. Denver just got rid of him like he was nobody. Comes in, he hasn't been super involved with this Detroit team, but the Green Bay had a hard time with him in the red zone.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, again, signs of a good team when guys can just step up and play. It's Tim Patrick. Hasn't really been involved in the offense much, but when they need him to make a play late in the game or in the red zone, he's there to make a play. Mm-hmm. That's good coaching.
That is good coaching. Yeah. You are very, very correct about that. And as good as the coaching is, I am worried that they're going to lose both Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, their OC in DC this season after the playoffs end. I believe they're both going to get head coaching roles wherever it is they go. But it's been magical watching them build the Lions of all teams.
Yes, it's good for football, watching the Lions be who they are.
The Lions being good is good for football. Yeah, I absolutely agree.
It's not good as a Packers fan, but it's great for football, right? But the Eagles are still out there too. I know we'll talk about them a little bit later.
Oh yeah. All right, so we are going to go ahead and shut this segment down. We are going to go to a quick commercial break. We are the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5.
This is the Mean Gene Show
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5
from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here's Mean Gene.
Welcome back, everybody. We are back from our break. This is the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5 Houston. I am joined once again by Mr. Bryce Shepherd, one of my best friends in life, and we are about to start rolling once more. We have the Saints versus the New York Giants next up, and this game was a barn burner, to say the least.
Yeah, it was my nap game today, is what I'm kind of calling it. Middle afternoon on a Sunday. It's raining outside here in Houston today. Got a little bit of chilly weather coming in, right, AJ? Raining a little bit, and it was nice just to lay on the couch, recline a little bit, and shut my eyes for pretty much this whole game.
This was a rough one. The Saints end up winning 14-11 over a just depleted Giants team. We talked about it before the show actually came on. I don't think the Giants win another game without Danny Dimes. I mean, they shouldn't win another game this season, right?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things you don't know what you don't really know what you got until it's gone. All right, that's kind of how I feel about Daniel Jones right now for the Giants. And who was it? Malik Neighbors a few weeks ago said it's not really a quarterback problem going on in New York. I think that's what he said. And it's kind of becoming, pretty clear that it wasn't a quarterback problem.
It feels like that was clear to probably the entire continental United States outside of the Giants ownership. I mean, they really thought Danny Dimes was the problem. And, there's only so much you can do when you don't have an O-line. I mean, Malik Neighbors is great. Darius Slayton's a great receiver. They do have Tyrone Tracy at running back now, who has played really,
really well. He's kind of emerged as a really good back.
Yeah.
Right? But I think he was a receiver first, and then they moved him to, to play running back. Tough runner. I think he's the guy who's putting the ball in the end zone the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, they suck. Like there's no way that you can there's no way you can avoid that. Like AJ, as our resident Cowboys fan, I mean, have you started to feel bad for the Giants yet?
No, absolutely not.
Good.
Never.
They're just so bad.
Never.
And a lot of it, I believe, Brian Daboll, bad head coach. I don't think that he is a great head coach. I thought he was a terrific
great
OC.
offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I mean, Josh Allen is Josh Allen because of Brian Daboll.
Correct.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I mean, he had a great first season, too, though, so that's the thing. But they have more talent and stuff like that. So, I mean, but it's an organizational malpractice, honestly. That's what it is, really. So.
Agreed. I could not believe that the owner came out in defense of the GM. He said John Mara's here to stay, Brian Daboll's here to stay, and then they got rid of Danny Dimes. And they really looked America in the face, and they're like, our team's going to be better for this. And, like, that's not how it works. That is not how it works. You can plug and play any quarterback you want into that system. Prime Tom Brady would struggle with this New York Giants team. Prime Peyton Manning. You can have prime Dan Marino. It doesn't matter. Like, nobody's going to come in and make an immediate impact because the team is bad.
Well, it was just a heartbreaker at the end, too. They actually had a nice little drive about to go down and tie the game, and I was super excited for overtime as that would have extended the nap a little bit. But it gets blocked.
Saints made a great play. No, you can't take it away from the Saints.
He hurdled the guy and got to the ball.
He Palamalooed it, and it was beautiful. I mean, he jumped over it. He blocked it. They didn't go to overtime, and again, you got to feel somewhat bad for the Giants, but they also dug their own grave on this one. Yeah. I mean, you can't just score 11 points in a game and expect to come away with a win or go to OT.
Yeah, I agree. And congrats to the Saints. It's a win. They got a win. They got a dub.
They did.
It wasn't a pretty one, but a win's a win in the National Football League.
They're still alive in the NFC South. It's very obvious that they there's only one team that looks like they're even trying to win that division this year. And week in and week out, sometimes it's hard to tell that they want to either, which we'll talk about the Buccaneers here in a little bit. But, we'll
talk about the Panthers a little bit, too.
We sure will. Yeah. And the Saints they're inconsistent. They're bad one week. They're great another week. I mean, they look like the best team in the NFL the first 2 weeks of the season, and they have just been very
Well, I don't mean to say anything to AJ, though, but the Saints had the Cowboys on the schedule in one of the first 2 weeks of the season, so made them look pretty good.
Referee.
Oh man, yeah. So, props to the Saints. They did end up pulling off a nice win against the Giants, sort of, I guess. But moving on, Falcons versus the Vikings. This was actually a good game.
Yeah. How good are the Vikings though?
It's hard to say. They're very good. They have 2 losses. The Vikings are a very good team. They don't wake up in the first half. Nope. Every game's competitive in the first half. And in the second half, it's like the ghost of Sam Darnold is awakened, and he is able to just do whatever he pleases. And, I mean, this game was no different. Aaron Jones looked much better in the second half. Justin Jettis scored 2 touchdowns in the second half.
Yeah, I apprecied that for fantasy this week. I'm in the losers, consolation bracket, but it's still nice to see how the points are racking up with Justin Jefferson. But I think that's when the offense works a little bit, and I think the last few, what they said, this was his first touchdown since October, I think, for Justin Jefferson. That's kind of crazy when you think about it. I mean, with how electric and how exciting he is to just play football.
First time to score a touchdown, but he makes it almost 2 or over 100 yards every game.
Yeah, he's right around the 100-yard mark. He just wasn't getting in the end zone. And but yeah, I think the Vikings are kind of one of those dangerous teams too. The NFC North, to be completely honest, is loaded. Wildly competitive with a bunch of really, really good football teams.
Oh yeah.
And if you're the Vikings, I think you have a little decision to make. Like, what do you do with Sam Darnold? We talked about it a little bit before the show, but I think that the team rallies around Darnold. It's been a resurgence. He's been really fun to watch. He was an MVP. He was in the MVP conversation for a while.
He's still in my MVP conversation.
I agree. So, I mean, what do you get? You're just going to let a potential MVP walk, and it looks like the team is playing really well with him at QB.
Well, they're going to have to pay him. That's going to be the biggest deal. They're going to have to open the coffers for him. And I think with J.J. McCarthy on the roster and, they sign Danny Dimes, I just don't think they have to. I am a true AJ's behind the glass shaking his head.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to sign him to a big contract because they have McCarthy. I mean, they invested so much in him. And then, I mean, if you want to have a backup, you would hypothetically try to see Daniel Jones in that system because Sam Darnold, he's benefited well in that Kevin O'Connell system too. So I don't think that they'll pay him a lot. But one of the teams that needs a quarterback in free agency, I think that they'll throw the bag at Sam Darnold potentially. Yeah, or get bridge quarterback or even try him out as their franchise quarterback.
Yeah, where do you think a good place is?
Well, see, the thing about like the Giants or Raiders, they're gonna have high draft picks, so they may be trying to look like for Shedeur. I think it would be perfect for him to be in Las Vegas. And then like you can maybe make the argument that New York should try to get Cam Ward. But if one of those teams want to bring in a veteran to like help them, maybe he could be one of them. It just depends on the situation as well.
I would love a little reunion with the Jets. Jets.
That'd be a nuts reunion. I can give you another possible landing spot for him if he doesn't end up, shooting for the stars and trying to get a $40 million contract. Miami has the worst quarterback room in the NFL behind Tua Tagovailoa. So if Sam were to take a slightly reduced contract, just want to play for a team that really, in all reality and all respects, should be a contender, he could go to Miami, back up Tua, possibly win a ring, but he could give Miami the best depth. It would be the same thing as Minnesota, right? He steps into Minnesota. Honestly, for me, hopes weren't high in Minnesota, but they do have a good roster. So he steps into Minnesota, ends up the starter, and look at him. He has had a terrific year. And if he were to go to Miami, he would immediately have, 1B for the greatest wide receiving core he's ever had. I mean, he's got a real good one in Minnesota with Jordan Addison and Justin Jettis. But you go to Miami, you might still have Tyreek Hill. You have Jalen Waddle. You have 19 running backs that would be a starter on any other of the 31
You got a
NFL
really
teams.
good tight end in Miami.
Jonnu Smith is on my fantasy team. Yeah, he's amazing. He catches everything.
Yeah.
So, you plug and play Sam Darnold there. He may not be the starter, but if something were to happen to Tua, all of a sudden, Miami's not just cooked until he comes back.
Yeah, I agree.
Just a thought.
So we could flip this a little bit too, though. What are your thoughts on Kirk Cousins right now with Atlanta?
So the Kirk Cousins is a problem. I really do think this is a rough spot for the Falcons to be in. This offseason, they do all of these things, right? They bring in all of these high-priced free agents. You bring in Captain Kirk from Minnesota, who won that trade, by the way.
Yeah.
But you bring in Kirk from Minnesota, and he is, I said this last week, and I'm going to double down on it again. He has turned into late career Matt Schaub for the Houston Texans, where all he does is throw interceptions. I mean, he's got all the intangibles. He's got a very good offense. There's no way to sugarcoat that. Kirk is making terrible decisions. He is getting pressured a little too much. But this is not the Kirk Cousins that was the king of consistency in Minnesota.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think we looked it up, 9 interceptions since week 9. And he hadn't thrown a touchdown pass since week 9. I mean, he threw for 344 today. But when I look at it, AJ, I want to know your thoughts. What about Michael Penix? Do you give him a shot right now?
I think you have to soon because, the Falcons, they're kind of in a similar position they have been the past couple of years without a quarterback, and now they're 6-7, falling behind. And even though they won those 2 games against Tampa Bay 7-6 now, so they're at number 1. So I feel like maybe next week, if Kirk just is playing bad, you might even try to put him in during the game and see what happens. Because at this point, you drafted him in the first round for a reason. So it's apparent now, with how Kirk has played, that clock is starting to run.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, they drafted him in the first round. It's not like Michael Penix was taken in the 3rd or 4th round, and hey, we were gonna give this guy some time to learn from Kirk and see, how he's playing. This guy was drafted him in the first round. He's brought in to play.
Right. The only obligation is the contract that you sign Kirk Cousins to. That's the one thing.
Which I think everybody was scratching their head draft night when they took Michael Penix, right? But right now, maybe they did see something, and
it's possible that he should be more than an insurance policy at this point. I mean, what do you have to lose, right? Tampa Bay's got sole possession of the NFC South, and I understand that Captain Kirk's a proven veteran. There's a chance that it could click, but if it were going to click, don't you think it would have happened by now? They should be playing better than they are. He should be playing better than he is with the tools at his disposal. Why not give Michael Penix a chance?
I agree.
Yeah, Sam, I agree too. I mean, if they're I don't know who they play against next week, but if they're starting to play bad, Kirk looks inconsistent, you have to try something. You need a spark because you're still trying to make the playoffs. So.
Exactly. And it's not like it all falls on Michael Penix's shoulders, right? I mean, Atlanta has a terrific run game. Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier are one of the best 1-2s in the NFL. So as long as you're not throwing 3 interceptions a game and duffing the ball every third throw, I mean, realistically speaking, your offense will move. There's going to be flow to your game plan.
Yeah, and they got the Raiders on the road next Monday night, December 16th. Maybe a time to give them some reps, maybe?
I mean, if he looks bad against the Raiders, then yeah, you got to
it's time.
For sure.
I agree.
So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do just because, I mean, this is Raheem Morris's team. He absolutely doesn't want to tank his opportunity to make the playoffs. But the clock is ticking. The season is winding down. And if you're not going to win with Kirk Cousins, there's no reason not to know what you got with your first-round draft pick quarterback.
Yeah. But, I mean, hard not to cheer for Kirk Cousins.
I love Captain Kirk.
So watching him struggle has been kind of tough. Just he seems like a good guy. Everything you've heard about him, great guy. Guys in the locker room.
Yeah,
he's struggling a little bit. He is coming off a pretty big injury.
It was a big injury, and I do think maybe he was possibly returned or he brought back a little early, but it shouldn't matter this much. He's had time.
I agree.
But all right, we are going to go to a commercial break. This is the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5 Houston.
92.5.
For the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's Mean Gene.
Welcome back, everybody. I am Jacob Meadows with the Coach's Quarters. This is Mr. Bryce Shepherd, my special guest in-house, and we are the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5. For this segment, we are going to jump right into the Browns versus the Steelers, which is one of my most disappointing games of the night. I'm not going to lie. I really thought Famous Jameis was going to pull this one off. He absolutely did not. Browns season is over, which, I mean, it already was. Don't get me wrong. But the Steelers look good today.
The Steelers are very good. I think you and I talked about it before the show and at the break. I think this is my pick to win the AFC. With the defense that they have, and the Chiefs are still the Chiefs. They find a way to win football games. It hasn't looked pretty at times, but they win.
Good teams win games.
But I think the Steelers are a team they could fall behind because they may not be able to move the ball. I think there's still some questions on the Chiefs' offense a little bit. Just hasn't been what we thought it would be.
True. Yeah.
And Russell Wilson's in the time machine right now. It looks like the guy who used to wear number 3 for the Seahawks. Doesn't run it quite as well. A little bit older now.
A little slow now.
The decision-making's still there. He doesn't turn the ball over. He makes the right decisions. He threw for 158, 2 touchdowns today, and that's all he needed to do.
Yeah, he managed the game well, and their run game was working pretty well. Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren both got involved. So it was, the Steelers are – before I go any further, by the way, Mean Gene is a massive diehard Steelers fan, so he's going to absolutely love this bit.
Good.
But the Steelers look great, and the Browns did have a chance to come back in the end of this game. They duffed a punt with 3-something left to go in the fourth quarter. They had a chance to come back, at least some. They ended up losing 27-14, so it would have been a climb, but they ended up screwing that up. And I do think Jameis Winston missed Cedric Tillman. Yeah, Cedric Tillman. He's still out with a concussion. But the Steelers are the most well-rounded football team in the AFC, I think.
I completely agree. And that's kind of what I was saying. I think they're the easy pick right now when you watch them play. I just think you can't score on the Steelers, and that makes it really, really, really tough. And TJ Watt's phenomenal. The secondary's playing great. You got Minka back there still leading the secondary, doing what he's been doing since he got into the league, really since he was at Alabama.
Yeah.
But I do like Jameis Winston. I think for the Browns moving forward, he might be the guy. Maybe give him one more shot next year.
The Deshaun Watson contract situation's what makes that a little
tied
murky.
into that. But the team seems to play a little bit better with Jameis. He has the worst timed interceptions I've ever seen by any quarterback.
But he's good. He's
good.
Jameis Winston, football guy. He is good at football. He does just make the most inopportune interceptions. And it's not all his fault, but it is 90%.
Yeah, it's just the timing of them, right? They're not early in the game where you can kind of bounce back. It's the late interceptions, right, and turning the ball over late. But, I think Nick Chubb needs to get going a little bit. He's just coming back from injuries, but he's got to get going a little bit. But they played the Steelers today. It's hard to look at a game and say, you played bad, and it was a very. It's always a physical game when these two teams play, but the Steelers are just better, and that's why they won.
I just hate that this it didn't justify, but it justified George Pickens' ridiculous comments after their first matchup, because after they played the first time, it was the Blizzard game, and George Pickens after the game comes out, and he's like, man, they only beat us because it was the snow. And then, nice sunny day, everything's perfect.
Yeah, beautiful day, nice weather there.
Yeah, so, that sucked, but, it is what it is, and it is going to be interesting to see what what the Browns end up doing next year, just because of the Deshaun Watson contract, the way Jameis Winston has led this team. I do think Jameis saved Stefanski's career, their head coach. I do think that this is going to be what ends up saving him.
Yeah. So. I would agree. I like what you said. Just stick with Jameis for a little while. But, everybody's got to watch out for the Steelers. I think if you're the Bills or the Chiefs, everyone knows right now the Steelers are for real. I think they kind of have solidified that over the last few weeks. I think there were some questions when Justin Fields was still at quarterback.
Yes.
Because could you throw the ball when you needed to? But like we said, Russ is playing in a time machine right now, and he looks like the old Russell Wilson.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of getting saved, how about the Raiders versus the Buccaneers? Baker Mayfield is the savior of this Tampa Bay team. They are going to potentially win their division for the second year in a row under Baker. And, I mean, it was not a pretty game because the Raiders definitely kept it closer than what I would think. I mean, they won by 15 points, right? So it wasn't a close game. But there were some dumb mistakes made. It did look like Baker couldn't find Mike Evans for most of the game. He did have a crazy hurdle, in the middle of the game. But we do, before we get rolling with this, we do have a soundbite for this game.
This is Baker throwing towards the end zone. It's caught. McMillan. Touchdown.
Watch Mayfield. He's going to fake just a quick little hitch. And you see the corner out there, Jack Jones. It looks like there's a safety help over the top.
Jalen McMillan had a freaking day today. It may not have been Mike Evans. Chris Godwin might still be on the shelf, but Jalen McMillan scored 2 touchdowns today and was Baker's favorite target.
Yeah, I think Baker just does a good job of that week in and week out. Every time you watch Baker, he does. Mike Evans is obviously the clear number one in Tampa Bay. Super, I think one of the most underrated careers ever.
Oh, yeah.
From a wide
First
receiver.
ballot.
First ballot, without a doubt. But Baker just does a good job of distributing the football where it needs to go. And again, Baker's another guy who, a few years ago, you didn't really know where this career was going. You kind of thought, number one overall pick, is he going to stay in the league? And he's found a nice little home in Tampa Bay. And I think the way he plays, he's another exciting guy to watch. There's a lot of emotion, a lot of passion, and I think as you play in the NFL, guys kind of rally around that.
He's a team guy. Yeah. The team loves him. I think the fans in Tampa do as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's hard not to because he bleeds for the game, right? Like he shows, like all his commercials that he used to do when he was with the Cleveland Browns. Like he lives at the stadium. Yeah. Like it's just like he's that guy.
Yeah. And I mean, he started in Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's tough to start in Cleveland.
We've
seen a lot of guys go there and not really pan out. But I think, it's kind of the second chance story. Same with Sam Darnold. He started with the Jets, and he looks like we said, he looks like the guy we thought he would be coming out of the draft now that he's with the Vikings. But I think the Bucs are for real too. I think they got a chance. They have a chance to steal a game from someone if they get into the playoffs because they are good. And like I said, you can tell they're a team.
Yeah, and they're also pretty well rounded. They may not be Pittsburgh level, but they have a good defense. Right, Levante David is still one of the best linebackers in the game. They have a good offense. I know Chris Godwin's not coming back this season, but it does feel like they can find anybody they need to fill a role week in and week out. They have a good tight end in Cade Otton. They have a great run game between Bucky Irving and Rashad White. Like this is a team that it's built to win games. They don't always do it, but they're going to be competitive in every game they play.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then you look at the flip side. We talk about the Raiders, And they do have a bright spot. I think Brock Bowers is a big-time bright spot. Wow.
No kidding.
I think what he's been able to do. An okay day today, 3 catches for 49 yards. But I think he's right at the top of the list of, even when you put receivers in, comparing him, how many receiving yards he has for the year. He's in the top 10.
He's breaking every tight end rookie record that's ever existed this season for a bad team.
Yeah, and I think they'll get better. We've talked a little bit about maybe changing some quarterback, things up, maybe a potential landing spot for Sam Darnold. Right,
I think he would be good there, and I think Brock. Could you imagine Brock Bowers with a quarterback that could actually deliver the ball around the offense and actually open people up?
Yeah, because he's so exciting right now, and he does things in the run game and the passing game. I mean, we all saw it at Georgia. I don't think we thought it would translate this well, but he was the real deal. Yeah. So I mean, all the accolades he had at Georgia were very well warranted, right? Because he's kind of shown who he is in the NFL too.
Oh yeah. Speaking of people that have really proven everybody right, how about the Jaguars and Titans? Will Levis, the Mayo Menace, that guy is awful. He is not a great quarterback. He looked terrible today, but, I mean, we've got to talk about it because it was an important game, right? The AFC South is still technically open. I think the Texans are probably going to lock it up, but, I mean, I thought the Jaguars were going to be the second best team in the division this year. I thought the Titans were going to be at the bottom. The Titans had a better record than the Jags going into this game, and this game ended, Jacksonville won 10-6.
Yeah.
This was, the toilet bowl, so to speak, right? Like, this was awful. Like, AJ's behind the glass shaking his head right now. Like, this is...
This was my second nap game, by the way, AJ, in case you were wondering. This is the other one I napped to.
That makes sense. People who are in punishment deserve to watch this game instead of all over.
It was awful. Mac Jones proved that he was the same Mac Jones that, left New England. And then on the flip side, again, I can't say it enough. I believed in Will Levis. I drafted Will Levis in 2 out of my 3 fantasy leagues this season, right? Because I saw what he did at the back half of last year, and I was like, you know what? Maybe he'll get better. He had DeAndre Hopkins. He had Calvin Ridley. I was like, this is going to work. He's going to figure out how to play football. He's got a strong arm. He can run the ball. And that dude he's not great. He's not great. And I don't even think it's coaching. I think Callahan's a good coach. I think that he's able to put people in positions that they need to be in. I don't think that Tony Pollard is a 3-down back, but I do think Tony Pollard is better than the running back that we see in Tennessee this season. I thought he was great for the Dallas Cowboys. He was a good player.
He ran for 102 today. If we have a bright spot for the Titans, I think it would be
but
Tony.
This is what his second,
Pollard.
third week all season he's been able to do that. It's because the Titans have no sort of consistency on offense.
I think it's a lack of weapons too in Tennessee. We can talk about Will Levis, but you just have Calvin Ridley and
they couldn't use D-Hop. They had some semblance of weapons. He's looked pretty decent in Kansas City. He was a stud for Houston.
Yeah.
I get it. He's on the back end of his career, but they struggle to hit anybody. It doesn't matter what kind of talent you have. You should be able to do something with something, and they cannot.
Yeah, but when Calvin Ridley's your number one, would he be a number one anywhere else?
Number 2, probably.
Number 2.
Probably a strong number 2, and that's hard for me to say because, big Calvin Ridley fan when he was at Alabama. I don't want to talk about the Alabama stuff today, but
unfortunately for the Titans, right? They drafted Treylon Burks to be their number 1. That dude is worse than Will Levis, right? They couldn't figure it out. When he could figure it out, he was hurt. So, Tennessee has done a poor job drafting. They've done a poor job developing their talent. I think they're going to end up moving on from Levis after this season.
What would make Tennessee better, in your opinion, both of you? What do they need to be better?
A quarterback. You plug and play Kirk Cousins with all of his interceptions on this Tennessee team, and they're going to win more games than they have now. You can't blame it all on the quarterback, but you can most certainly blame a lot of it on the quarterback with the just boneheaded decisions that Will Levis has made.
But then you look at the other side of this game we're talking about. You're talking about Jacksonville, who had Trevor Lawrence for most of the year until last week or 2 weeks ago now, right? They're still struggling too, and everyone thought Trevor Lawrence was going to have a pretty good year this year as well. Is it all quarterback?
I think that might be coaching. I think Doug Peterson lost the locker room. I think that's the big issue in Jacksonville. I'd like Doug Peterson. I really wanted him to be good there, despite them being in the AFC South. I think he lost the locker room.
Yeah.
So I do think it's a somewhat different situation.
Because the Jaguars have weapons. You talk about ETN in the backfield. Tank Bigsby's kind of came out of nowhere and been a pretty good back, and then you talk about Evan Ingram as a tight end. He was one of the top tight ends in the league last year.
True, but they're also missing their top 2 wide receivers. Yeah. They're both out for the season. That's going to have a very big impact on everything. And Trevor Lawrence has been inconsistent.
Very inconsistent.
But with that being said, we are about to cut to a commercial break. We will return shortly. You are listening to the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5.
This is the Mean Gene Show
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5
from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here's Mean Gene.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5 Houston. I am Jacob Meadows. Once again, I am joined by the Mr. Bryce Shepherd. And it's been a fun show so far.
Oh, I'm having a blast.
So glad you ended up coming. It's a lot harder when it's just me talking to myself and then talking to AJ. It's nice being able to bounce it off. Somebody else.
You kind of threw a little shade at me earlier, but we've been talking about this for a few years about me coming on a show with you and talking a little football. And here we are 2 years later. This is probably your wedding gift to me, knowing you'll just write that in a card or something.
I brought you to ESPN.
That's what you'll say. You'll write it in a card and say, "Hey, happy wedding, man." Remember that time I put you on the show.
Remember when I brought you to the studio?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, that's what you'll say. Good luck to you and Sam. All the love, Jacob. That's what the card will say. Yeah.
All the love. Speaking of love, The city of brotherly love. The Panthers played the Eagles today. They went into Philadelphia and almost won. Shout out Dustin Pfeiffer, our resident Panthers expert. I hope you had a ball today. I know they lost, but the Panthers played really, really well. And had it not been for an Xavier Legette drop right at the end of the game, which looked bogus until they showed the replay, and it was most certainly a drop pass, the Panthers win that game. Philadelphia did not deserve to win. They got incredibly lucky at the end. Not like a KC lucky, but they did get lucky. And how did you feel? Because I know you, being the Alabama fan that you are, Bryce Young, very big Alabama guy.
Yeah. Just happy for Bryce Young. I think a lot of the hate early on was pretty unnecessary. Young guy learning the league. And let's be honest, the Panthers have little to no weapons.
No talent.
Adam Thielen's the best wide receiver.
Who had a day today,
Who had
by
a
the
great
way.
day. 9 catches, 102 yards.
I hope he never retires.
Yeah, just play forever. I think you're watching Bryce Young get comfortable, and I think this is why he was the number 1 overall pick. The upside in him getting comfortable in a system, and they, like you said, they went into Philadelphia, which everyone knows, super tough place to play, and they were a drop away from a game-winning drive by Bryce Young.
Yep. In the fourth quarter, This was the perfect opportunity for Bryce Young, right? Like, you have him coming in. It's another big game. He almost beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Doesn't. But on the flip side, Eagles, one of the top 2 teams in the NFC. So he comes into Philadelphia, and what does he do? He balls out the entire game. And I do think that the Panthers are going to be sitting pretty in a couple of years. I mean, they do need some more offensive weapons. Adam Thielen's like 35 years old. So, as much as I want him to play forever, he's not. And they got
a great back in Chuba Hubbard.
Chuba Hubbard is terrific.
He's been great, and I think if you would have told anybody at the beginning of the year the Panthers were going to take the Chiefs and the Eagles, in a span of 3 weeks down to the wire and almost win those games, you're crazy.
Laughed in your face.
And Bryce Young's going to play good and only turn the ball over once in those games.
Right. That's crazy.
There's something brewing in Carolina, I would think. And they're not in a very strong division, so I would say moving forward they probably have a chance to make
They have a shot at the division next year. I do feel bad. So Jonathan Brooks, the running back out of the University of Texas, he finally gets off of IR. He's worked his way back to the active roster. He did get hurt today, waiting to kind of see what ends up shaking out of that. I do hate that.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a great addition to this team if he and Chuba can figure it out, because Chuba signed a contract. Like, he's going to be there. If Brooks and Chuba can end up going 1-2 with that, like, Carolina could have a really good 1-2 punch at running back. Xavier Legette is a great wide receiver. He's a rookie. It was a rookie drop. Like, you can only blame him so much. This was never a year that anybody thought Carolina was going to go to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, this season has been all about development, and they have shown a lot of promise.
Yeah, I completely agree. I didn't think going into today the score would be 22-16 with a drop in the end zone deciding the football game pretty much. They're on the road against the best team.
Yep,
one of the best teams in the
teams.
NFC, right? And I was just pretty impressed. I'm pretty impressed with the Panthers. Like you said, Alabama guy Bryce Young is starting to look like the number 1 overall.
He's looking like the Bryce Young that everybody saw.
Yeah,
at Alabama.
He's making good decisions. He looks a lot more comfortable. He looks like he's in control of what's going on.
On the flip side of this, I wonder, is it time to panic for the Eagles a little bit? Like, after watching this game, are you, AJ, as the Cowboys fan, right? They're same division. You watch it more than either of us would. The Eagles have not been great, right? Like, they do what they do. Saquon Barkley also, I want him to win the MVP. But that defense allows a little too much. And do you still think that the Eagles are one of the teams to beat, or do you think that we're going to see maybe not the precipitous fall off that we got last season where they collapsed, but do you think that the Eagles might start falling apart here at the back end?
I think they've won like 8 games in a row. I think it's just like fatigue, maybe not fatigue, but maybe just getting boring. Like, they're ready to just get to the playoffs probably, because I think that they are way better than they were last year, and that was just couple of things that still went unexplained, but they're a way different team than that. And you're seeing Vic Fangio defensively being able to get most players together. I mean, this week I think they just underestimated Carolina, but the offense with Kellen Moore, which I'm surprised, because Kellen Moore used to just throw the ball a lot, used to stray away from the run game in Dallas, but he's really embraced Saquon Barkley, and that's why we're seeing him have a MVP type year. So I think that they're going to be good. I think that the Lions, and obviously the Packers, those are the 3 in the NFC that should be favored to potentially represent the NFC.
Yeah, I would 1,000% agree with everything you just said. I think it was a lack of the Eagles kind of getting up for this game. You've like you said, you've rattled off 9 wins in a row, and here come the Panthers. And I think sometimes teams, especially that are as good as the Eagles, think, we could play a C game today and probably still get a win. I mean, they threw the ball for 108 yards today.
It's fair. And I mean, especially with the head-to-head dub against the Commanders, I guess they really aren't worried about relinquishing the title in the division. So, I mean, it would make sense. I mean,
but there is something to play for. They're playing for a bye. I think that should be a reason to kind of get excited for a game like this. But I mean, I don't think it's panic time.
I mean, they did win. Yeah. So at the end of the day, kind of like what you said with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, a good team wins, and they did win. So speaking of another team that won, right? How about that Miami game today? They looked dead to the wolves for a lot of this game. Somehow strike back in the second half. The Jets are the Jets. So I had the opportunity to go to a Jets game last year. I went to the Jets v Miami game at the Hard Rock Stadium last season. For the entire game, the entire crowd, and I mean entire crowd, chanted Jets, suck, suck, suck. And this was a huge dose of that once more. Aaron Rodgers does not look like the MVP Aaron Rodgers. Devontae Adams does not look like the MVP Devontae Adams. And this Jets team is not good.
No, they're not. That's the simple thing to say. And I think it falls. Look, Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion, is the greatest thrower of the football ever. And what I mean by that is when he throws the ball, it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever seen him not throw a spiral. The ball's always on the money.
It's beautiful.
I just think there's a leadership side to Aaron Rodgers that we don't see a lot, I guess.
He has a huge ego. For sure.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think, he's so good and so great. And then I think the issue the Jets are having now is everyone's looking at every single thing that they're doing, and you bring in Devontae Adams for Aaron Rodgers, and you're still losing. And you're in a game. By the way, Tua he may be the second best, most beautiful thrower of a football I've ever seen. The ball is beautiful. It's on the money. The throw in overtime to win it
he can throw dots.
Was amazing. It just led him perfectly to the sideline for the win. And then they had a big drive to go kick the field goal to tie it too. So I think the Dolphins are a team when they're all healthy, and I think everyone's hoping Tua stays healthy. It's just you've been watching him, and he's so great, and then something happens and he gets hurt. But the Dolphins are really good when they're all healthy. And Tyreek Hill's getting healthy too.
Hey, you know what? So my roommate's the biggest Miami fan I've ever met, right? Die hard his whole life. He's been miserable his entire life, right? The Dolphins have never won anything of note in his lifetime. And he thinks in the back of his mind, this whole thing where Tyreek Hill, ligaments torn in his wrist, this, that, and the other, he thinks it was just an excuse for a bad season. Tua's finally getting hot, and Ty Hill's finally getting targeted, and he looks good, right? Yeah. Doesn't look hurt, and it's one of those things where I think it was more of a confidence thing, the confidence around the morale with the Miami Dolphins got low. Tua goes out. They do have the worst quarterback room in the league behind Tua. It's a bunch of guys that shouldn't even be in the league unless they were on scout teams, and they could have gone for a high draft pick. Now Miami looks like they're driving to try and get a wild card position. Yeah. And this is a team that you might not want to play. Their defense has been pretty good this year.
As long as it's warm weather. You wouldn't want to play them.
You don't want to play.
If they got to go on the road and it's below 40 degrees, you're feeling pretty good.
They went to Kansas City last year. It was -30, and it was a terrible game.
Yeah.
But if the conditions are just right, Miami is a good team.
Yeah. And I think they got a good quarterback. He seems like a pretty good leader. Seems like the guys like him. And like you said, the targets that are happening, it was 14 for Tyreek today and 12 for Waddle, and 10 catches for Tyreek and 9 for Waddle.
They killed it. And Tua throws dots all over the field, and he's supplemented by a terrific run game. Devon Achane, they have that running back right who kept getting balls he kept getting thrown to out of the backfield, and he's a good runner.
Yeah, he is. Great runner. But we're talking so much about the Dolphins offense. What happened to the Jets defense? I think coming into the year, everybody was like, oh, this is going to be one of the best defenses in the league. 2 shutdown corners. Linebackers are good. The D-line's solid. They're giving up points.
Yeah.
It changed when you fired Robert Saleh, honestly, and then you had the defensive coordinator have to take responsibility for the offense and defense. So,
Yep.
That's part of it.
Bob Salah was brought in for a reason, and when they fired him for the mishaps with the offense, it blows my mind because Salah was a defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, and it was never his fault. Ulbrich steps into his position, and you're getting a whole lot of the same for a lot of the same reason.
Yeah. Do you think they wanted Saleh to be like Dan Campbell? Do you think that's kind of what they were going for with that hire? Is, they would be a similar type teams where they're just tough and gritty, and you wanted that, but they just didn't get it in New York?
I guess so. I mean, they came in the same year as head coaches in 2021, but I mean, it's just different situations. I don't know. The Jets, they're just a bad organization too, though.
Yeah,
so it's like they're kind of cursed too.
Yeah, those teams in New York are having a tough time.
It's going to be. I feel bad for the fans in New York.
Yes,
but we will get right back to this. We are going to have to go to a commercial break. You are listening to the Mean Gene Show on ESPN 97.5 Houston.
How did Ella bake her way to the top? It all started with one smart decision. She test drove a certified used truck from her local Ford dealer. It was inspected, backed by a Ford warranty, and fit her budget. A Carfax report was the cherry on top. Soon, a pinch of confidence became a truckload of ambition. Cupcakes became customers. Customers became regulars. Hola. Turns out, Ella's next great investment was herself. Ford Blue Advantage. Used car buying that's built for you. See dealer for full program and limited warranty details.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
Fred runs his own landscaping business.
Yeah, with my two brothers.
They take their business very seriously.
Sure do.
Fred traded up to commercial auto insurance from Geico for serious customized coverage that grows as his business does, all for seriously low rates.
All right, so when's it going to happen? You know, the big Geico surprise.
I'm sorry?
Some hair metal band. Are they going to jump out of those bushes?
No, this is a serious Geico ad.
That pyro was pretty cool, though.
Get more with Geico Commercial Insurance. Trade up today at geico.com/commercial.